The warp is not alive. That is the lie at the center of chaos. What screams from the immaterium is not the voice of gods plotting the galaxy's end. It is the death rattle of gods who already had their moment and lost it. The Chaos Gods are not eternal because they are immortal. They are eternal because they are incapable of dying properly. And that is far worse. A living god evolves. A dead god festers. Everything about chaos points to stagnation masquerading as infinity. Endless war with no strategy. Infinite schemes with no conclusion. Eternal decay that never reaches entropy. Pleasure stripped so raw it becomes numb repetition. That is not divine vitality. That is post-mortem motion. Khorne has collected skulls since before Terra learned to burn oil, yet his empire of rage has achieved nothing permanent. No final war. No perfected conquest. No ultimate massacre. Just more bodies. Always more bodies. That is not victory. That is compulsion. Khorne does not choose violence. He cannot stop producing it. Tzeentch is worse. The so-called god of change has been psychologically frozen since his ascension. He does not mutate philosophy, only complexity. His plans fold inward, devour themselves, and re-emerge unchanged. The Lord of Change has not changed in millions of years, which means he is lying or dead. Nurgle is entropy without release, a diseased eternity where nothing is allowed the mercy of extinction. His garden does not end worlds, it preserves their suffering indefinitely. Rot without resolution, pain without closure. That is not natural decay. That is a corpse refusing burial. And Slaanesh? Slaanesh is the most damning evidence of all. Born from a singular psychic event, the Eldar's terminal excess Slaanesh has never transcended it. Every temptation, every delight, every horror is still just a twisted reflection of pre-fall Eldar sensation. No escalation, no evolution, just louder echoes of a scream that already ended. Slaanesh is not discovering new pleasures. Slaanesh is desperately replaying the only moment it ever truly lived. That is the behavior of something that peaked at birth and then calcified. In biological terms, chaos shows all signs of death. No adaptation, no speciation, no innovation, only growth in volume, not complexity, only spread, not development. This is not an ecosystem. This is a psychic tumor. Ask yourself a forbidden question. Why has chaos had 10,000 years and still not one? Real gods would have annihilated real space by now. Adaptive gods would have abandoned demons, cults, and brute corruption centuries ago in favor of subtler, irreversible strategies. But chaos keeps doing the same thing. Daemon invasion, mortal rebellion, collapse, reset, again and again and again, because chaos is incapable of learning. It doesn't observe reality. It reacts to it. The Chaos Gods are not thinkers. They are reflexes. What mortals mistake for intention is just psychic gravity. Violence falls into Khorne. Fear sinks into Nurgle. Ambition drifts into Tzeentch. Desire slides into Slaanesh. Not because the gods pulled it there, but because there is nowhere else for it to go. The warp is a psychic landfill, and the Chaos Gods are the largest piles. They don't command their followers. They metabolize them. Every cultist believes they are chosen. In truth, they are fuel consumed by an engine that no longer remembers why it exists. That is why chaos cannot self-correct. When chaos loses, it does not reflect. It simply demands more. More blood, more souls, more prayers, more suffering. A living god would refine its strategy. A dead god only howls louder. Now compare that rot to the Tyranids. The Tyranids are terrifying for a reason. Chaos will never be again. They learn. They fail and improve. They encounter resistance and rewrite their biology. They discard entire evolutionary branches without sentiment. Chaos can't discard anything. It is locked into its original psychic shape. Khorne cannot stop being rage. Tzeentch cannot stop being indecision. Nurgle cannot stop preserving what should end. Slaanesh cannot stop chasing a high that already passed. The hive mind, by contrast, has no nostalgia, no identity inertia, no sacred form, which means it can become anything. Chaos cannot. It is finished. That is why chaos fears the Necrons. That is why chaos cannot infect the Tyranids. That is why chaos hates the Emperor. Because the Emperor is unfinished. The Emperor is broken, fragmented, contradictory, suffering, and therefore still alive. The Chaos Gods reached apotheosis and froze. The Emperor was denied it and continues to change. Every soul sacrificed to the Golden Throne alters him. Every prayer reshapes him. Every act of faith warps his presence, not into a single emotion, but into an aggregate. Duty, obedience, sacrifice, hope, fear, belief, contradiction. Chaos cannot process contradiction. It requires purity of emotion to feed. The Emperor feeds on mixed belief, which makes him something chaos cannot consume, something it cannot mirror, something it cannot become. If the Emperor completes his transformation, the warp will contain something it hasn't seen since the dawn of time, a god that evolves after birth, a god that is not a feedback loop, a god that does not rot into repetition, which means chaos is not fighting to win the long war. It is fighting to delay irrelevance. Because once a god exists, that can change. The dead ones will finally be recognized for what they are. Not eternal rulers of the warp, but fossilized tyrants drifting on borrowed screams. Chaos is not the future. It is psychic sediment. The galaxy is not afraid of chaos because it is alive. It is afraid because it cannot let go. And dead things that refuse to die always rot the world around them. And this is the part no daemon will ever admit. Chaos knows. Not consciously, not intelligently, but instinctively. Something in the warp feels wrong. The immaterium is louder than ever, yet thinner. Emotion is consumed, but not retained. Belief reaches the old gods and slides past them instead of feeding them. This is why chaos has become more extreme, not more effective. More rituals, more sacrifices, more desecration. Dead gods do not adapt to scarcity. They overconsume. That is why daemons feel cruder, corruption faster but unstable, and champions burn bright before collapsing into madness or mutation. The engine demands fuel. It no longer cares about efficiency. Whole warbands are thrown away for symbolism. Worlds are sacrificed for attention, not strategy. Reality is torn open not because it leads to victory, but because chaos needs to be heard. A living god whispers. A dead god screams. This is why the great game stagnates. The Chaos Gods are not rivals of ideology. They are competing corpses feeding on the same shrinking emotional spectrum. The galaxy is changing. Rage numbs. Fear exhausts. Desire hollows out. And numbness feeds chaos poorly. So chaos escalates, not to win, to provoke feeling, because chaos cannot reach an end state. An ending would starve it. Chaos must always stop short of victory. Enough destruction to feed, never enough to conclude. It cannot win without killing itself. Meanwhile, faith consolidates, not around emotion, around structure, duty, ritual, obedience. The Emperor's presence in the warp is not loud like chaos. It is heavy. Where chaos scatters emotion outward, The Emperor pulls belief inward. Where chaos fragments identity, the Emperor enforces unity. Dead gods infect. They cannot build. The Emperor is building something whether he intends to or not. A god born of contradiction, hope and cruelty, faith and doubt, love and terror. Chaos cannot process contradiction. It chokes on it. And if the Emperor stabilizes, not as perfection but persistence, the warp will face something new. Succession, a god that does not overthrow the old ones, but makes them obsolete. Chaos does not fear death. It fears irrelevance. That is why it must keep screaming, because silence would mean acceptance, and acceptance would mean the truth. The Chaos Gods are not the future. They are unresolved psychic trauma. And trauma does not end by being fed. It ends by being outgrown. When the galaxy finally moves on, chaos will not end in fire or war. Only echoes, drifting, unanswered,